Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Tuesday, December 7th. I'm Gary Stevens. It is the first Tuesday of the month, which means we feel the zeal. Catch up with things going on in the city of Zeeland with its longtime mayor, Kevin Klynstra. He joins us via the Zoom connection this morning from his offices at Zeeland City Hall. Good morning, Kevin. Hopefully all is well with you and everybody at City Hall.
Good morning, Gary, on this fine wintry morning.
Yeah, wintry. Makes me think about the snow melt and efforts to try to get the snow melt going on in Zeeland. Some have been effective in terms of you have it down. Where are we standing with maybe the expansion of the Zeeland snow melt?
Well, we had a community or downtown meeting with the downtown store owners and about a month ago or so, and we discussed it and they got their feelings on what they thought about it, and still the majority of them would like to see it happen. So we're in the planning stages. They're getting our engineers are working on it as we speak. So.
If you got a question about things going on in Zeeland, Mayor Kevin Klynstra will be happy to answer it at 616-395-1450, 616-395-1450. Kevin, I would be a little negligent if I did not bring this subject up with you, even though you are not a member of the Zeeland Board of Education or involved in an official capacity with Zeeland Public Schools. But the fact that there are no classes today at Zeeland Public Schools, out of an abundance of caution. The situation in Oxford has led to many copycat threats being called in. Districts are canceling classes across the state because of an abundance of caution. We were hopeful it wouldn't come to our neck of the woods. It has to Zeeland Public Schools. It is a tough situation that the district is going through. Certainly, you feel for the students and the teachers, and hopefully those can be the fears can be dissuaded. But still, as a mayor, you don't want to see a situation happen in your community like what happened in Oxford.
You are correct, Gary, and I believe the school is doing exactly what they should do. Is they should have abundance of caution, and even if there's a hint that something might happen or a rumor that something might happen, we don't want to see what happened in Oxford and or a number of other different communities where they've had shootings. So I'm fully behind the school board and the school staff on this.
And of course, this is a school situation, but also public entities have had to deal with some unpleasant situations when passions run high. We've seen it with the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners, most notably recently in our area. But all governmental entities have to keep in mind, yes, the public needs to be informed, public needs to be a part of these meetings, but let's keep the decorum in because we don't want these meetings to get out of control.
That's correct. And, we even with the incident they had with the car riding through a parade, so our police department and fire department were very cautious during our Christmas parade as well. So you never know what will happen, and it's better to be overly cautious than to have something like that happen.
Yeah, indeed. Very tough situations. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's a far cry from some of the concerns when you first joined council and then when you took over for Mayor Les Hoagland. A far different scenario we live in these days. But unfortunately, it is, as they say, it is what it is.
Yes, I believe social media has a big part in this, and I just wish that parents would watch their kids, what they're doing on social media a little more. And it's sad.
Let's talk a little bit about a brighter note, and I don't know whether or not the city is going to do anything in particular. I know that they've done so in the past to honor one of their favorite sons, based the Little League situation a few years ago. But Sunday's announcement that Zeeland native Jim Cott is going to be in baseball's Hall of Fame. He'll be inducted into Cooperstown next year. Longtime pitcher, current broadcaster, an outstanding broadcaster in his own right. Zeeland, pretty proud of having the the Big Six, as they say, the Cherry Apple kid from Zeeland, now in baseball's Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that is quite an honor, and it puts Zeeland on the map again. And Jim Cott hasn't lived in Zeeland for quite a few years, but I'm sure his heart is still in Zeeland. His parents lived close to where I used to live on the east side of town, and he was always a big deal in Zeeland. I'm old enough. I remember when he pitched for the Twins, and he came to town one year and handed out autograph pictures of himself on Main Street, and there was hundreds of kids wanting to get a picture of him. So he's always been something of a kind of a folk hero in Zeeland. And I remember when he was inducted into the Grand Rapids Hall of Fame that the city of Zeeland bought a table at the dinner at the induction ceremony. And we've always been very proud of him.
And hopefully it might be a good contingent of people who remember the Cott family that might be making the trek to upstate New York for those induction ceremonies sometime next year. 616-395-1450. If you have a question for Zeeland Mayor Kevin Klynstra, he'll be happy to take it at 616-395-1450. Kevin, I want to touch upon a couple of things that were on the agenda during last night's Zeeland City Council meeting that I want to get your thoughts on what exactly happened and where we stand on these two items. First of all, public hearing was scheduled last night for amendments to the alcohol ordinance. Tell us about what those amendments were and what sentiment, hang on to that thought for a minute, because I will take a call, because I don't want to let the caller go too long, because we might be talking a while about that alcohol ordinance. Good morning. You're on Talk of the Town with Kevin Klynstra.
And thank you very much, too. And the alcohol is important. Could Kevin give us an update on the city manager's health situation dealing with cancer?
Yeah, it's a sad thing for the city of Zeeland, and we have Tim in our thoughts and prayers daily. At least I do, and he is beginning treatments, and he's got a good attitude. I think the doctors have a good plan for him, and I think they can keep it under control. So we just hope for the best for him and his family.
That's with chemo and radiation both?
It's radiation first, and then they'll be doing immunotherapy soon after that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the call. 616-395-1450. Remember, Tim Klunder coming from Algonac, basically about the same time I came to WHTC, 2001, 2002, and he has been a faithful servant for the city of Zeeland, and our prayers are for him and his family to get through this challenging time as well. 616-395-1450. All right, as we were saying before we got that important call in, Kevin, where do we stand right now with this proposed amendment to the alcohol ordinance in Zeeland? And what was the sentiment, if any, during the scheduled public hearing last night?
We had a few people in the audience, and most of them were store owners, and they supported it. We had 9 changes to our ordinance, and most of them went from what we had drafted when we originally set up the alcohol ordinance. And we were overly cautious when we did that, but the restaurant owners and the brewery downtown did a good job. They handled the alcohol situation as well as could be handled, and with no incidences over the years. And so we decided that it was time to loosen up some of the regulations that we put on it, the city itself. So most of them, we went with the state guidelines, which makes it easier. If a restaurant wants to come into town, they know what to expect. It's the state guidelines that they have to follow. And I think it'll just be a lot simpler for regulating our restaurants downtown and breweries.
616-395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Mayor Kevin Klynstra.
Good morning, Mayor. I would like to know if there's any plan for Zeeland to have a restaurant that if you work in Zeeland, you can drive up to it like the old Muzzie's was. It was perfect. Where do you go around here except the McDonald's? And all of them are way out of town. They have something in town. Is there any plan on having something like that?
Well, after we did the roundabout, you can do that at Captain Sunday. They have a drive-up window. But other than that, it's hard for the city to say we're going to do that because it's a private enterprise that comes into a town and would open up a store. We could try to recruit somebody like that, but most of the time with our downtown, we have ones that you walk into and not a drive up. So those are, like I said, Captain Sunday, I think, is the only one in the city of Zeeland, but you don't have to drive far to find one on the outskirts of town.
Well, if you don't drive or if you work in Zeeland at a factory and you only got like half hour to get out and get a hamburger and some fries, where do you go around here if, to get something like that? You can't. And it doesn't draw the people into the town, I don't think, my opinion, like it should. If you had something like that, people would come into town. And I don't mean a whole cluster of restaurants like that. I'm just saying, maybe get a couple or something, or at least look into the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
616-395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Zeeland Mayor Kevin Klynstra.
Thank you. This is not to do exactly with, with a question about Zeeland, but I was just going to refer to Jim Cott. And I think the mayor knows this too, that Helder Park, the baseball field there was dedicated in, I think it's called Jim Cott Field now. And he also wrote a book, which I have, and he signed it for me when that was opened. And that was in 2004. And the book is called Still Pitching by Jim Cott. So if anybody would, I don't know if it's in the library here, but it's a very interesting book.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you very much. 616-395-1450. I was referring to that appearance that Jim made at Helder Park when they dedicated the fields for the Little League in his name, just north of the city limits, but still part of Zeeland as well.
Yes, I read that book too, Gary. That was an interesting book on how he made it to the majors and the things he had to go through.
616-395-1450. I wanted to follow up on our discussion about the alcohol ordinance amendment before we took the two calls, about the fact that you mentioned, Kevin, that the restaurants want a little loosening, and the city council pretty much agreed that to go with the state guidelines for those who are serving alcohol by the glass. What about packaged liquor stores? I think AJ's is the only one in the city limits that can sell liquor in a package situation. What about that situation? Is the restriction still going to be there, or has that been loosened too?
Those are still the same. We did not do anything with the packaged liquor. Those pretty much followed the same guidelines as the state. And we've made some amendments to the ordinance over the years for them as well. Like AJ's had put in a walk-in cooler, and we had to change it for that a little bit. So yeah, it's kind of been a ordinance that we've changed quite a few times over the years to suit the restaurants that came in or the.
Yeah. 616-395-1450 if you have a question for Zeeland Mayor Kevin Klynstra. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin. AJ is the only one in Zeeland that can sell packaged liquor, or did the fueling stations, the Mobile and the Admiral, get those licenses too?
No, they did not. You are correct. AJ's is the only one. Some of the restaurants can sell takeout if they want to. They got a special license for that. So I believe Vitale's can do that, and Triple Root can sell their own beer as well.
Okay, I just was trying to clarify that because I'm just trying to think of other entities inside the city limits of Zeeland that might be looking at packaged liquor licenses and looking to do that. And again, as I mentioned, I was thinking just the AJ is the only one, and I know that some of the some of the gas stations, convenience stores do that in other parts. So that's why I was asking about that question in the city of Zeeland. Yeah.
I was just going to say that our service stations are not in our alcohol boundaries, so that is why they aren't selling it.
Kevin, there was one other public hearing slated for last night during the meeting, a master plan, a proposed Parks and Recreation master plan. Tell us what the changes are, or maybe no really changes to that document, and where do we stand on that?
Well, as it's stated, it's a master plan, a 5-year master plan. And the reason why we did that is because if you want to be considered for grants, you have to have a master plan. And so the Cemetery and Parks Commission went through that the last year and a half. And we went through each park that we had and decided, along with the help of MC Smith, we decided what parks needed help and what we should do and what it would cost. So that is all in the master plan. It goes through our parks, each one park by park, and says what changes we might make. It's not that it's written in stone that that's what's going to happen, but it's just something that we can look at and keep on our radar and budget for. So, certain things, maybe in 5 years, the play equipment that we have in there now will be obsolete. Or, on the Hoagland Park, we put in a bocce ball court. That's something that maybe it won't happen, but it was something that right now is popular, and thought it might be a good addition to that park. But it's kind of a working document, and we can change it as we go.
In general, is it a case more than anything else in Zeeland, Kevin, that for the parks and for the cemetery, maintenance and renewal of equipment as necessary is more important than maybe expanding the parks or maybe adding parks to the system right now?
Yeah, it's with the Hoagland Park, we bought a house and tore it down last year, and so we have a big empty space there. So it was kind of important to do that one. But the buying of equipment for maintenance that's kind of in a different budget. That's just something that goes through our motor pool fund. So it's always, we fund that and we look at it over a number of years, just like the master plan. We have a CIP for equipment. So that kind of comes out of a different budget. So the parks is another line item in the budget, and we put money away for that every year. So now we know how much we need to put away and where it's going to be spent. 616-395-1450 of a question for Mayor Kevin Klynstra.
I apologize if this question comes out of left field, but I'm just thinking about getting residents to those parks. And obviously, by motor vehicle is one thing. Some like to ride the bicycle, and that's great. But also, some I think would also want to use some public transportation. Of course, Zeeland is a part of Max Transit. Being a part of that, and Max Transit really making its fixed routes into Zeeland, most notably the expansion to Spectrum Health Zeeland Community Hospital over the last few years. Talk a little bit about the importance of Max Transit to the city of Zeeland and the ongoing support that Max Transit has within the city council, because if I'm not mistaken, Zeeland contracts with Max Transit. It's not a case where the voters have to approve any special millage as they do in other communities.
You are correct. We contract with them, and they give us a full service. I sit on the board. I'm not a voting member because we aren't. We don't have a millage that supports it, but I sit on the board and listen to the meetings. So yeah, it's been very good for the city of Zeeland. Our industry probably are the biggest users, or the people that work at our industries, and they appreciate it. And just like Zeeland, you mentioned Zeeland Hospital, they requested that a bus service go out there because some of their workers needed to use that or wanted to use it. I don't know about needed to, but wanted to. And some of the patients that go there for doctor's appointments and so forth, that they can use it. So yeah, we worked with Zeeland Township and got a service out to Spectrum Hospital, and it's worked well. And people see buses with empty seats in it a lot, but if you look at it when our industry starts up at 7 o'clock or 6:30 in the morning, and at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then you'll see fuller buses. So sometimes they are empty, but they still get used a lot.
More on what you might want to find out about going on in Zeeland is through the city's website, which is City of Zeeland, all one word, cityofzeeland.com. Kevin Klynstra, as always, we appreciate the time you spent with us today in terms of telling us about some of the things going on in the city. I know that there was a lot of festivities last week with the Parade of Lights downtown last Tuesday, and of course a lot of fun activities going on for this holiday season. We wish you and your family well during this Christmas time. And if all goes well, Kevin, we'll talk again after the first of the year. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Gary, can I say one thing?
Go right ahead.
I would like to invite everyone to my mayor's coffee that is going to happen next week, Thursday from 11 to 1. So come on down. You can grab a cup of coffee, pig in the blanket, or some other treat, and say hi to the mayor. And my special guest is our assistant city manager, Kevin Plockmeyer. You can see him as well. So.
Kevin, thank you very much. We'll talk next month.
Thank you, Gary.